Well, good morning, everyone. I wanted to make a short video and to kind of review where we're at, although we just started, of course, but we're on our second discussion thread, and I've gone through the grading, and I wanted to review that with you. And I'm basically recording this at a lovely bed and breakfast in Bedford, Pennsylvania, called the Chancellor's House. So if you ever get a chance to come out here to Bedford, you can stay in this beautiful restored Victorian home where the host and hostess, husband and wife, Battle and Carol Brown, do a wonderful job. And let me tell you, you think you've gone back 100 years. And not just with the ambiance, but with the civility, the courtesy, things that we don't see today, things that have been lost, the use of fine china, for example. The tapestry behind me, the artwork, the furniture. Things have changed. They really have. And I think, we have to adapt to change. So in this class, you're adapting to change because the change is really to focus on you, okay? So let's just briefly review three major points, three topical areas I wanted to talk about. First of all, our discussion threads. Thank you. Most of you have posted. I need better referencing. And I don't need a lot of referencing. When you reference, I'm seeing some of you just write what you want to write, and then you list the 3 textbooks, or 4, whatever the case may be. That's not proper referencing, okay? Of course, those are the assigned texts. You need to reference in line, in your sentence, or you can footnote, however you want to do it. But if you're picking up a concept, or if you're making a statement from one of the authors, or something that you've gleaned from the author, even if it's your own thought, give credit for the impetus of that to the textbook. That's all you got to do. 1 or 2 references, 3 if you're, kind of looking for coverage of all the text would be fine. But a blanket reference, no. Starting next week, I'm not going to be so gracious with the points. This week I was fairly gracious, with the exception of a couple of you where it looks like you didn't even read the textbook, okay? I'm sorry. Or you didn't give thought to the requirement. You lost a lot of points. Now, I'm going to get more strict or stricter, whatever the proper grammar is, as we go forward. So I'm warning you now, better referencing in line, okay? And please, don't ramble. Answer the requirement that the discussion thread asks. If it's 3 questions or 5, answer each one, okay? And be brief. And if you want to refer to another student, you could say, as Diane stated, blah, blah, blah. And just keep it real short. Don't repeat what Diane stated. If you're going to rely on what she said, reference her, but don't repeat it all. That's just a waste of space and a waste of time, okay? So focus on your discussion threads, the referencing. Second thing on the discussion threads, I want to see more crosstalk, more critique of one another's points of view. I want to see some differences of opinion. We just had breakfast here with 2 wonderful couples. We've never met before, and we were talking about various topics. And, of course, we being newly acquainted, you don't talk about very sensitive or personal issues, but we talked about, for example, the COVID vaccine lockdown or the pandemic lockdown, and whether, it was kind of an extreme, pros and cons. Now we're seeing more information that was censored and kept from the American people and the world regarding the vaccine. And now people are starting to really question whether the governments were being truthful and whether the big pharma withheld information that should have been given to the people, if not to the government. And in some cases, we think the government might have even known about this and suppressed it, and that's why they suppressed alternative scientists or alternative views. and the media was complicit. So we talked about that, and it was polite, it was civil, it's over breakfast. There are different views, I'm sure, but the point I'm making, because we're going to get into this in Module 3, is critical thinking. You all are probably very intelligent people. Must have had, I bet you, significantly greater SAT scores than I ever had, okay, or grades. But that doesn't mean you're a critical thinker. You may very well be a biased thinker. Think about this. Critically think about this. A bird needs 2 wings to fly. A left wing and a right wing. The mind, the cockpit, controls the flapping, right? The adjustments. You can't just have one view. You should always listen to the other view and allow the computer between your ears to discern the truth and the reality. In most cases, I'd venture to say you're going to come up with a hybrid solution from those 2 polar opposite wings. Okay? An amalgamation of thought. In the minority of cases, you're probably going to say the left wing needs to flap a little harder than the right one, and vice versa. So, as you prepare for your discussion threads going from this week forward, think about challenging one another politely or proposing a different view. For example, if you were pro-lockdown, you might say, yeah, this is why I think pro-lockdown works. But also, if you're pro-lockdown, you have to concede, if you're a critical thinker, there were some negative consequences, and the cost versus benefit consideration, has yet to be seen. Although I think we're starting to see there are some downsides to the lockdown, as an example. Okay, so your discussion threads really need to focus on the word discussion, okay, in addition to proper referencing, all right? Again, succinctness is key, all right? So your grading on your discussion threads will be getting a little bit harsher, shall I say, keeping it simple, a little harder. But I want you to kind of contribute with one another and not be afraid. This class is about, I hope I can create a safe zone for you to express your thoughts. But remember, politeness and civility are critical. A great lesson I learned when I was younger was, in my faith, I am told to love even my enemy. That's hard to do. But when you realize loving your enemy doesn't mean liking them or liking what they do, it's a lot easier. How do I love my enemy, Professor Savini? Well, if your enemy comes to you hungry or thirsty, there's a storm out, you give them food and water, you give them shelter, you don't lie to them, you treat them with respect, civility. That's love in action. But you don't have to like them, and you don't have to like what they do. So understand, there are solutions to many of our biases if we understand. Don't feed into the hatred that exists. And we know why it exists. It's for political dominance and power from those in charge, whether it's economic powers, political powers, or even religious powers. Don't succumb to the hatred. Don't look for the differences. Look for the similarities. Work together with people. And yes, love. Don't have to like, but love. At least that's my philosophy. So, we're covering all this in the context of appropriate discussion threads. Point 2, topical area 2, paper 1, integrity and competence. You're going to be going through the readings this week. You're going to talk about integrity. What does it mean to be to have integrity as a person. And competence, what does that mean? Okay, technical proficiency, right? Integrity, I think, would definitely entail critical thinking. It entails a consistency in application, and with deviations clearly explainable. Being someone you can rely on. So I want you to talk about this in the context of your own ethical framework in paper one. Now in paper one, students who do the best get personal. Now they might not get into the details, what color hair they have, or what's their favorite nail polish, or what their favorite, athletic wear is. That doesn't matter. That personal degree we don't need, but I need for you to dig down and say, hey, why is that my favorite nail polish? Or why do I only have to wear armor, athletic clothing? And the more you get personal in paper one, the higher your grade will be, because you're digging deep. So you identify your ethical framework and consider integrity and competence, why it's important to you, and why it's important to your organization or society as a whole. And keep it real. If you give me generic write-ups for paper one on integrity and competence without delving into how you view it and how maybe you see strengths and weaknesses in your own character, you're not going to do well. So keep it real. Regarding your ethical framework, think about this. Do you use the same framework at home as you do on the job? Do you wear a mask on the job to cover your real belief? I mean, it's okay to put on your best face at work, your game face, I get it. And at home you can be more relaxed. But think about the ethics. I have neighbors back in Virginia, and the sons, they're all boys. They get kind of rough with their mom. When their mom might say, come in for dinner, they use some pretty choice language. And I just wonder, wow, do they do that in school? Or would they do that with a friend's mom? Are they different in another setting? Now, how are you? Are you honest and ethical, let's say, with your spouse, but then at work, you're fast and loose, you're looking to cut a deal, you're looking to get a kickback, or, milk the county government or city government you're working with by hosing up the expense voucher a bit to make up for the extra hours you've been putting in? Or is it the opposite? Are you extremely ethical on the job, and in your personal life you're having an adulterous affair, you've got a gambling addiction, a sex addiction? Think about this, because some of you do. And some of you are being duplicitous. But why? And does it matter? Does it matter? Can you be two different people at two different places with two different ethical frameworks? Now, I'm not talking about lapses where you make a mistake in one sphere over the other. I'm talking about a deliberate, I'm going to play it cool here, but here I'm playing fast and loose. Why? So these are the things I want to see in paper one. All right? And again, remember, if I suspect any plagiarism, I use Turnitin, and don't plagiarize. Okay? Just don't. Please. Be smart. Write in your own language. What makes me concerned is when I see that you're writing better than how I would write, or as well as the authors write, who have gone through different manuscripts and editorial processes. That puts me on high alert that you're kind of like using Copilot or ChatGPT to write your paper. So again, I'm looking for personal insight. ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot can't give you that, but you can give me that. And that's what I'm looking for paper one, okay? Again, any questions, you can email me at the Rutgers account, and I'll answer those questions as best as I can. Our third and last topic, again, is critical thinking. Module 3, I've kind of already broached this earlier in the video, but we're going to understand religion, or try to understand how does religion affect our critical thinking. Should it affect our critical thinking? When it comes to religion, there are different religions, naturally. So how does it affect you? Now again, you could take this and apply it even in paper one, right? When you identify your ethical framework. Hey, I'm from a Buddhist background, or I'm from a Hindu background, all right? I'm from an Anglo background, and we're Protestants or whatever. And you can explain that, and that's perfectly fine. Now, I've had some students who have totally walked away from any religion that might have been introduced in their lives, and they speak about that. So that's okay. Let us know, if you're going to address it in paper one, what your secular framework is predicated on. And I bet you there's going to be some commonalities with the major religions nonetheless, okay? So then we also talk about moral development in, I think, Boss in particular. How do you develop a conscience? I've heard some parents say, I knew when so-and-so was born, they were going to be trouble. I just knew it. I can't challenge a parent saying that. I had a friend of mine who said that about his son, and unfortunately the son overdosed on cocaine and alcohol. The father knew the son was going to have this problem as a little boy. But I've often wondered, in the spiritual sense, if you believe in spiritualism or into, supernatural, did the father somehow plague the child with these thoughts? It just crosses your mind, right? I mean, kind of predestined the child. But you've heard parents say that. So how do you develop conscience? Can it be developed? Do we develop it in different stages, as Boss suggests? So, and getting back to this notion about God, you're going to learn about the command theory, the divine command theory. Think about this. We've had terrorist attacks, domestic, international, where some of these terrorists have said, God told me to. Okay, so God told you to take a bomb and blow something up, including yourself. Or, okay, God told you to take a rifle and go out and harm innocent children in a school. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Naturally, we would say they're mentally unstable people. Naturally, we would say if there is a God and they heard a voice, the type of God that we all believe exists or would want to exist wouldn't do that. So, you think about these things, and for you to answer, do we use religion as a force for good or as a force for bad, right? And again, which would mean that that is not our underlying core values or ethical framework, because I don't know of any religion that would say it's okay for you to go out and murder. Now, there could be, I've heard all kinds of things about some faiths. I don't press anybody on that or pass judgment. I don't think that's something that stands to reason, okay? So, again, critical thinking, left wing, right wing, moral development, conscience, and religion, ethical framework. Do you apply different frameworks? If so, how? Are you consistent with your frameworks? That's what I'm looking for. Bid you farewell from Bedford. Take care. Goodbye.